Hi, class. This is Mrs. Dixon. It is Monday, and we are talking about division. Yep, this is the second part of multiplication and division unit, and we're focusing today on understanding remainders. So here's our learning target. I can represent the quotient of up to a 4-digit whole number divided by a 1-digit number using area models, or equations. And language objective, I can choose a strategy to represent a division problem and justify my thinking. And there are some sentence stems to help you. You can use these sentence stems when you're talking with your teacher or when you're talking with other students and you're doing division. We're going to start with our notes, and there are a few more notes than normal because we need to address some division vocabulary. So let's get started on our notes. Before we even start watching the visual learning video from Envision about understanding remainders, I think it's really important that we establish a common math vocabulary so that we, teachers, students, all understand what we're talking about when we're talking about the division. So the topic today is understanding remainders, and then I put division vocabulary because this is going to be our first page of notes. There is 2 pages of notes today, but that is because we have to establish the vocabulary. The terms for today are remainder, divisor, dividend, quotient. The first thing that I'd like you to write in the notes section is when you divide, any number that remains after the division is complete is called a remainder. The other thing to note, remainder must be less than the divisor. Now, just so that we're all on the same page with division, here are 3 division vocabulary that I'm assuming you've learned before, because I know division's not new to you. Some of the things we will be doing with division will be new, but division itself is not new. So, divisor, number that divides another number. Dividend, the total number that's being divided. And quotient is, you can call it the answer, but it's the number in each group. So that is something that I want you to make sure you have copied into your notebook. Also copy the example that I have, 20 divided by 4 equals 5, and the parts labeled. Remember to pause this video at any time to help you make sure that you get all of the notes. Let's get started with today's visual learning.
When you divide, what do you do with the number that is left over? When you divide, any number that remains after the division is complete is called the remainder. The remainder must be less than the divisor. For example, Ned has 27 soccer cards in an album. He can put 6 cards on each page. He knows that 27 divided by 6 equals 4, with 3 left over as the remainder. Use an R to write a remainder. 27 divided by 6 equals 4 remainder 3.
Let's write this problem into our notebook as an example for us to use later. I've started a new page in my notebook. The topic is Understanding Remainders. I wrote the term as remainder, and I did write in the notes section, remainder must be less than the divisor. This is really important to remember. I also wrote down the example that they gave, and I wrote down the visual model. 27 divided by 6 equals 4 full pages with a remainder of 3 cards left. And I want to also write down that the capital R in a division problem represents remainder. Pause this video if you need to finish these notes.
What should Ned do with the remainder? Let's look at some questions to show what to do with the remainder.
So this is going to be the most challenging part, because there's things like remainders are tricky in division problems because they represent different things. So you have to read the question in the math problem to determine what you're going to do with the remainder. And there's basically 3 options or 3 questions that you can ask yourself. And so that's what we're going to be writing down in our notebook as we listen to the rest of this video.
How many pages can Ned fill? To answer this question, find how many groups of 6 there are. The remainder can be ignored.
So in my notebook, I did write this down. And so I'm going to show you what I wrote. Notice on remainder options, the first option I wrote was ignored. And I wrote ignore remainder when the quotient answers the question. What I mean by that is when only the focus is on the number in each group, or how many groups you could make, like in this case, how many groups you could make with the 6, then you would have that as your answer. So if the question was asking how many tables were needed at a wedding, then that question's a little different. And we're about to learn more about that sort of question. Let's continue watching.
Divide the counters into equal groups. Make equal groups with 6 counters in each group. Why do you put 6 counters in each group? You put 6 counters in each group because the album pages will hold 6 cards. 27 divided by 6 equals 4 with 3 left over. Ned can fill 4 pages. The remainder can be ignored. Let's look at another question. How many pages will Ned work on? To answer this question, find out how many groups are filled or started.
So this is something that I want to write in our notebook also. Another option for remainders is to add 1 to the quotient. So you're going to add 1 to the quotient when the answer to the question being asked requires the remainder to be included. So for instance, in this case, where we have 4 pages completed, but there's a 5th page that has not been started. Well, it's been started, but it hasn't been finished. So that means we're actually working on 5 pages. We've got 4 complete with 1 started. So we would have to add 1 to the quotient to make the answer for that question.
Add 1 to the quotient without the remainder. We already know the quotient is 4 with a remainder of 3. So the answer is 4 plus 1 equals 5. Ned will work on 5 pages. Let's answer one more question. How many cards will Ned put on the 5th page?
So this brings us to the third option for our remainder when it's in, like, how to use it when you're finding an answer. So in my notebook, I wrote down the last option for remainders. Now, if you notice, at the last one I wrote, I said remainder as an answer. Use the remainder as an answer when the leftover is the answer to the question. So in this case, they're asking, how many are on the fifth page? Or if they said, how many are left over? You would know that the only thing you're going to focus on for your answer is the remainder. So there are other times and other ways that we might use the remainder, but these are the three basic ways that we're going to use a remainder in fourth grade. So just remember that the remainder options, the remainder, sometimes you can ignore the remainder. Other times you need to count the remainder by adding 1 to the quotient. And then finally, there's times where the remainder will be the answer. So let's finish up the video. At the very end of the video, you will see that they summarize the video. You can write that in your summary section. That's what I did. So let's finish the video.
The answer to this question is the remainder. The remainder is 3. Ned will put 3 cards on the fifth page. How can you multiply to check your answer? To check your answer, multiply 4 times 6. Then add the 3 left over. 4 times 6 equals 24. 24 plus 3 equals 27. You've learned what to do with the remainder when you divide.
So remember, your summary for this math lesson is that I've learned what to do with the remainder when I divide. Now we're going to try some problems. My suggestion would be have your notebook out beside you when you're working on your math problems. You can easily look to your notes and refer back to the problem that we copied into our notes to help guide you through the guided practice that you'll be completed today and the independent practice. Thank you. Good luck with understanding remainders. Bye.